So you've tried to read a book in another language, right? And you find yourself just staring at a dictionary, looking up every single word. It feels like you're wading through mud. Well, what if I told you the problem isn't you and it's not your motivation, it's your method? Today, we're going to dive into the Fluent Forever approach and see how you can rewire your brain to turn reading from a total chore into an actual learning superpower.
Here's the game plan. First, we'll talk about that reading roadblock we all hit. Then, we'll get into the two-part solution, rewiring your brain for both sound and memory. After that, we get to the really good part, reading for fun, before we wrap it all up with a simple, step-by-step path to get you there.
All right, let's start with the problem itself. If you've ever felt completely frustrated trying to read in another language, you're in good company. Believe it or not, there's a real scientific reason your brain seems to fight back so hard.
Man, this probably sounds painfully familiar, doesn't it? That slow, painful march through some classic novel with a dictionary glued to your hand. It's the exact opposite of what we're aiming for. It's not just slow, it actually trains your brain to hate reading in that language.
So the big question is, why? Why does our brain push back so much? Well, the answer is pretty simple. We're skipping the most important steps. We're trying to sprint before we've even learned to crawl.
And that brings us to the first part of the real solution, rewiring your brain for sound. See, before you can read words, before you can even properly memorize them, your brain needs to be able to hear the language correctly. This is what we call the pronunciation first principle.
I know, it sounds totally backwards, right? Learn how to pronounce words before you even know what they mean? But that's exactly the secret. When you master the sounds of a language first, your ears get tuned in. Your brain stops struggling just to figure out what it's hearing, which frees up all this mental energy to actually focus on what the words mean.
Now this is a perfect illustration of something called broken words. Let's say you see the French name Descartes, but in your head you say Descartes. You've just created a bad memory. You're memorizing the wrong sound, and that broken word will actually block you from recognizing the right one when you hear it spoken. And get this is not a metaphor, it's a neurological fact. As kids, our brains build these sound maps, and any sound that isn't on our native map just gets filtered out. A great example is how a native Japanese speaker often can't hear the difference between rock and lock. To their brain, it can sound like the exact same word, so we literally have to train our ears to hear what was previously unhearable. So, how in the world do we do that? We use a super effective tool called minimal pairs. You can think of these as a targeted workout for your ears. By forcing you to focus on that one tiny little sound that separates two words, you're making your brain carve out new pathways to hear that sound.
And the process itself is brilliantly simple. It's just a three-step loop. You listen, you guess, and you get instant feedback. That immediate feedback part is absolutely crucial. That little green check or red X is what tells your brain circuits whether they got it right, forcing them to build a whole new category for that new sound.
Okay, let's build on that. Once your ears are tuned in, you've got to make sure the words you learn actually stick around. And that means we need to rewire our whole approach to memory.
We've all been there. You learn a new word one day and poof, it's gone the next. That's the infamous forgetting curve doing its thing. To really learn a language, we need a weapon, a real strategy to fight back.
And that weapon is called a spaced repetition system, or SRS for short. Just imagine flashcards that are actually smart. They figure out how well you know something and then show you that card at the exact moment you're about to forget it. It's an incredibly efficient way to just drive information deep into your long-term memory.
And here's the proof in the pudding. This chart shows that testing yourself just once, that's called active recall, is way more effective than just passively looking at the same information twice. The simple act of struggling for a second and then remembering the answer is like doing a rep at the gym for your brain. It builds a much stronger connection than just staring at the answer.
Okay, so here's a rule that's going to change everything for you. Stop translating. When you learn that gato means cat, you create this slow, clunky connection that goes through English. The goal is to cut out the middleman. We want to connect the word gato directly to the image, the feeling, the idea of a cat.
So instead of translating, you make deeper, richer connections. You connect the word to a picture, or even better, you connect it to one of your own personal memories. The reason this makes memories 6 times stronger is because you're using more of your brain. You're pulling in emotions and senses. You're not just storing a fact, you're building a whole web of connections, which is exactly how our brains are designed to learn.
Okay, so you've rewired your ears, you've rewired your memory.
Now for the really fun part. This is the payoff. This is where all that groundwork lets you transform reading from a painful chore into something you do for fun. That also happens to make you fluent fast. Take a look at this number, 10%. Any guesses what that is? That is the percentage of unknown words your brain can learn automatically, just from the context when you're reading. No dictionary, no flashcards, your brain just soaks them up.
And this is the magic moment. You get to pick up a book you actually want to read, something fun like Harry Potter, and just go for it. You'll start absorbing hundreds of new words without even trying. Your brain's internal grammar machine just starts picking up the patterns on its own. And you get that amazing feeling of following a story, of getting the gist, even if you don't know every single word. This isn't trudging anymore. This is flying.
So, let's bring it all home. We've covered a lot, but it all boils down to a really clear and powerful game plan that you can actually follow. Here it is, your 4-step path. Step 1, train your ears so your brain can actually process the language. Step 2, build your core vocabulary, but do it without translating, using images and a spaced repetition system. Step 3, make grammar stick by using it in sentences that mean something to you. And finally, once that foundation is built, you unlock Step 4, read for fun, and let your brain's incredible learning machine take over.
So, I guess the real question is this. Are you ready to stop the painful translating and start playing? Because that's what this is. When you build the right foundation, you're not just studying anymore, you're turning language into an enjoyable and totally winnable game.